In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're answering the biggest questions audiences may have had while watching Dune Part 2. We're including questions about Dune lore and the next steps in the story for those who haven't read the books. Consider this your spoiler alert.
I won't be fighting for him. I'm fighting for my people.
Number 10. Where are all the computers? It seems like our own future will be bound up with AI and robotics, but they're curiously absent in Dune's sci-fi setting. That's because of the Butlerian Jihad, an uprising against thinking machines 10,000 years before the events of Dune, and over 11,000 years into our own future. It isn't mentioned in the movies, but the books detail how humans eradicated, quote, computers, thinking machines, and conscious robots. The Orange Catholic Bible prohibited their creation with the commandment, quote, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind." In place of advanced computers came highly trained human replacements, such as mentats. Speaking of mentats, Number 9. What happened to mentat Thufir Hawat?
How much will it cost them, traveling all this way for this formality?
3 guild navigators, a total of 1.46 million, 62 salaries round trip.
2021's Dune introduced us to House Atreides mentat Thufir Hawat, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson. Hawat has a key role, serving as Leto Atreides' principal advisor.
Thufir, operations.
I secured a copy of the Harkonnens account books. The Harkonnens were taking 10 billion salaries out of here every year.
They shall suck at the abundance of the seas, and the treasure hid in the sand.
But he's nowhere to be seen in Dune Part 2. In the book, Hawat is captured, poisoned, and forced to become Baron Harkonnen's new mentat, strategizing against the mysterious Fremen leader Muad'Dib. In secret, Hawat is also plotting against the Baron. When Hawat realizes that Paul is Muad'Dib, he takes his own life. Henderson did film scenes for Dune Part 2, but director Denis Villeneuve ultimately cut them, describing it as a, quote, painful choice. Number 8. How do the Bene Gesserit do their voice?
Come here. Kneel.
How dare you use the voice on me?
Bene Gesserit ability seems supernatural. Some even refer to the sisters as witches. One of their most incredible talents involves use of the voice to influence and compel people.
Give me the water.
Almost.
But it's not truly magic at all. Like the mentats and the Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit emerged in the vacuum left by the destruction of thinking machines. Their training includes the, quote, minutia of observation and, quote, conditioning of nerve and muscle that gives them complete control of their bodies. Together, these allow them to use the tone, timbre, and pitch of their voices to subconsciously manipulate people.
Consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides.
Number 7. How does spice enable space travel?
For the Imperium, spice is used by the navigators of the Spacing Guild to find safe paths between the stars.
In Dune Part 1, we learn that the navigators of the Spacing Guild use spice to, quote, find safe paths between the stars. But how does a spice assist in interstellar travel? Well, in the Dune universe, spaceships are threaded through, quote, folds of space in order to traverse vast distances. The spice melange is an awareness spectrum narcotic that expands consciousness, granting consumers superhuman prescience. Exposed to massive quantities inside tanks of spice gas, the mutated guild navigators can see ahead in time, and thus navigate the perils of fold space. Number 6. Why is there spice only on Arrakis?
My planet Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air.
If spice is so valuable, why not just grow it everywhere? That is a secret explored in the novel that Denis Villeneuve's movies just didn't have time for. The sandworm life cycle begins with tiny sand plankton feeding on the spice. Sand plankton becomes sand trout, whose excretions combine with water, producing a pre-spice mass underground that builds up and explodes onto the surface. With exposure to air and sun, this mass becomes the spice.
Spice blow.
trading places with the sands above. The sun and heat will dry it out, and soon,
Spice.
treasure of the universe.
After hibernating, the sand trout eventually emerge as sandworms, who then feed on the sand plankton. The spice is a product of the sandworm life cycle, so in a sense,
the worm is the spice. The spice is the worm.
Number 5. Why aren't atomics used more in warfare?
He who can destroy a thing has the real control of it.
The futuristic tech in Dune has transformed combat. Shields, for example, which make use of the Holtzman effect to nullify gravity, have curtailed the usefulness of traditional ballistic weapons.
The slow blade penetrates the shield.
Other firearms include lasers or laser guns, but when a laser gun hits a shield, the effects are unpredictable and explosive. The Great Houses also have stockpiles of atomics, i.e. nuclear weapons. So why not just use them to wipe each other out? Well, as on Earth, the result would be mutually assured destruction. A truce called the Great Convention decrees that, quote, use of atomics against humans shall be cause for planetary obliteration. That's why, in Part 2, Paul chooses to use them against the shield wall rather than his enemies. Number 4. What will become of Fade's child?
Fade Rotha, he's psychotic.
In Dune Part 2, the psychotic Fade Rotha serves as a foil to Paul, both of them products of the Bene Gesserit breeding program. Lady Margot Fenring seduces Fade to preserve his genetic material, seeming to foreshadow trouble in the future. But Frank Herbert dropped this thread in his sequels. The fact that Villeneuve included the subplot suggests he might have plans for it if he gets to adapt the next book, Dune Messiah.
Show me who you are.
The thread was continued in a book written by Frank Herbert's son Brian and Kevin J. Anderson. Set between the events of Dune and Dune Messiah, Paul of Dune sees Fenring train daughter Marie as an assassin to use against Paul. It's an element that Villeneuve could easily rework into Dune Messiah if he wished. Number 3. Who is the next big bad?
May thy knife chip and shatter.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
Dune Part 2 ends with Paul unleashing a holy war against the Great Houses. The Emperor has accepted exile, and all the major villains in House Harkonnen are dead. So who will oppose Paul in any film adaptation of Dune Messiah? In the books, the Baron does come back, although in a pretty unexpected way. But that isn't until after Dune Messiah. The main antagonists of Messiah are conspirators led by Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother Mohaim, Spacing Guild Navigator Edric, and Scytale of the Tleilaxu, an isolationist society infamous for their genetic engineering. Scytale is a face dancer, a shapeshifter who can take on other likenesses. Paul also has a band of Fremen rebels coming for him, so yeah, he'll have his hands full.
He said that.
I got that. Thanks.
Number 2. What will Chani do now?
This prophecy is how they enslave us!
In the closing scene of Dune Part 2, Chani has struck out on her own, unlike in the book where she's resigned to becoming Paul's concubine. So where will she go? Will she and Paul reunite?
I want you to know I will love you as long as I breathe.
You will never lose me as long as you stay who you are.
In the book Dune Messiah, even though Paul has married Princess Irulan, it's Chani who has his children, Leto II and Ganima.
These are your children, Muad'Dib. Both are alive and strong.
Children? Twins, my lord.
Given the conflict between Chani and Paul in the movie universe, will this still happen? It seems likely just based on how integral Leto II and Ganima are in subsequent books. Could Chani also be working against Paul somehow, however? Perhaps as part of the rebel plot against him? We'll have to wait to find out. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. What will happen with Paul's holy war?
The prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it.
Because all my visions lead to horror.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it.
This is a lot easier to answer, so here's another spoiler alert. Taking place after a 12-year time jump, Dune Messiah has Paul sitting on the throne as Emperor of the known universe. His holy war has raged across the galaxy, leaving 61 billion people dead. Yeah, no wonder he freaked out when he saw the future.
It's coming. I see a holy war spreading across the universe like unquenchable fire. A warrior religion that waves the Atreides banner in my father's name. Fanatical legions worshipping at the shrine of my father's skull. A war in my name!
He feels trapped, knowing that there are even worse fates for humanity if he lets go of the wheel.
I see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
Meanwhile, he's begun to fulfill his promise to terraform Arrakis, a process that continues through subsequent books, posing an existential threat to the sandworms and thus the spice.
As Emperor Dr. Kynes, I can make a paradise of Arrakis with a wave of my hand.
The life of a Kwisatz Haderach isn't simple. What do you think will happen between Paul and Chani? Tell us in the comments. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.